So, Jess, you and I have had a morning together. Well, let's just be real. Let's just be real. It took us a second to find the right recording equipment, and I got to happenstance meet your partner. He's trying to help you get everything together. And what we decide to do is just use AirPods and use this audio because this audio is the audio that we need to speak your truth. So, thank you for doing this. And thank you for just being yourself and us having a real conversation about listening to intuition and showing up as our true self. So again, thank you 1,000 times over for being here.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here, and I think it's hilarious that my like extenuated podcasting career has led to AirPods and the internal mic. So I'm actually hearing you not through my AirPods, but through the computer while I'm speaking through the AirPods. That's how I hear you through a buffer of.
So I think Jess has something like 15 million downloads on her podcast, and so you think she was like, you think that I would show up differently, and I'm like, no. Yeah. This is how we must show up. We must take the tools we were given at the moment we're given them, and then just run with it. So speaking of that, we're going to get into a little bit more. I have the luxury and the honor of knowing you a little bit deeper, but before we go there, just to kind of set the pretext for the conversation that we're going to have. We're going to be talking about listening to intuition, and all of a sudden that kind of raises people's autosensory skills. And we're like, wait, intuition, gut, feelings. No. I want to be logical. I want to talk about marketing. I want to talk about sales. So instead of getting there, let's start off with something that's practical that I think is very interesting. When you sell courses or tickets to your event, you say something really fascinating. And it struck me because you don't say come to this event or buy my thing. You say something along the lines of, if your intuition tells you it's a fit. So you're never for that hardcore sell, and then yet you're really successful. And I think that this would be a really good place to start. When and why did you decide that your sales pitches would be less about buy this thing and more of is your intuition guiding you to this? And then how has it worked out for your business?
Okay, so that's a really interesting question. I love the question, first of all. It's really insightful to, I guess, especially for anyone that is business oriented, how I am so successful in such a different dimension, so many traditional metrics and dimensions, but then this extra dimension that is almost mythic in terms of the ease and the flow and the alignment and the magic. So that piece of it is what, I think there's many people, yourself and many other people included in even in the, say financial or social media metric success, way bigger. But there is an ease and a flow and a really healthy abundance and support within my system where I basically I'm only thinking about work when I'm actually teaching, and then I have a team to do everything else. I really don't think unless I'm actually doing, which you just witnessed because I literally got here 10 minutes in the house before this call, and then I didn't have the microphone working. But that's how little I think. I didn't even know the time of the podcast start because my boyfriend was like, I think it's at 5. And I was like, well, I think it's 5:30. He's like, I've seen your calendar. I think it's 5. So I'm just not thinking. I am living from intuition. And so that question originated from working 10 years ago, my first online class where I was working with people and realizing that their intuitions had the answers I didn't. And even on one-on-one level and in a class level, I realized if they're not willing to go to their intuition, they're not the right person for me because they're going to hate that I'm going to tell them to go to their intuition if they join this class. So they might as well join the class from their intuition in the first place. And then I know I have the right people and I'm not burdened. This is what I want to say. I'm not burdened with the responsibility of making them the wrong or right client for me. So when they're in the class, if someone's not having a great experience, I find that interesting because it's one of two things. Either they didn't really hear their inner voice when they were signing up, and so they did it from a FOMO or a feeling of the mind telling them they should do it, or they did hear from their inner voice and their mind doesn't understand yet why it's so magical yet. And so either way, the responsibility is never on me that they're here. And I think that also breeds a level of trust with my clients because they know I'm never trying to sell them anything. I just say, if your intuition's excited, feels it's a fit, I'm excited to work with you, but I'm not telling you I should work with you. Your intuition will tell you if this is the right fit, and then I'll work with you, and I'm excited to do so. So there's this level of I'm not telling you, you're a sovereign being. You can choose for yourself, and ideally you choose from your intuition. I'm encouraging you to go there first before even the purchase is made. And so everything throughout the rest of the experience will be the same. You're still going to go into your intuition, even in the classes that I would run. So it kind of is a consistency, and the alignment of those clients is so high and so easy because I'm never selling the wrong type of person the wrong thing for them,
Mm.
that makes your life so much easier. Because I mean, you could make more money a different way, but there's more problems with that kind of
Yes.
customer base. So the
Yeah.
fact that I have a small and simple aligned community is so effortless on my part.
I love that. Okay. So just, is it possible if we can pull the hair back? Cause I feel like the audio is cracking a bit.
Okay. And I can also go get a hairband. I have asked how many countless guests on my own show the same thing. Here, you guys want to go on a tour with me?
You know what? It's not your hair, Jess. It's not your hair. Something's cracking with the
my AirPods. Well, I can just go straight computer
Let's go
mic.
straight computer mic. You know,
All
if we're
right.
gonna go all the way, rip them out and let's go.
This is
welcome, baby. Welcome. I am here for this.
Hear you properly too. And guess what? Now we're like unplugged. Is this the internet version of raw and unplugged? Is this like a live mic night?
You know, being unplugged, that's what I want for the podcast. And I know that you're going, your life
Oh,
is
I'm
heading in
already
that
unplugged.
direction. I know you are. I know you are. I know you are. So this is such a great thing. So somebody here is listening and they're like, well, great for her. She has a pre-qualifier to have somebody's intuition guide for the sale. So before we move on to the other questions, can you give us like a point of origin? Like, who is the Jess now and like what led you to this point that you feel confidently to say, is your intuition leading you to invest?
Well, okay. So I would say that I was an American, born in Ohio, raised in Michigan, lived my 20s in Chicago. So then I was married, white picket fence, about to have kids and all that stuff. And then my intuition over the journey of being unhappy with the work hard, play hard mentality, the business school and my family I grew up in I was like, wait, there's already an early awareness that work hard, play hard, hustle was not success because I grew up in a family like that. My dad thrived in that environment, but as a child, I didn't. So I was aware in school being bred to be like that wouldn't be my thriving place. So I didn't know what a better way to live life would be, but that like implanted the desire to figure it out for myself and my own misery in business school, to solve my own problem and then help anyone else that was struggling. So that's where it started. And then I did blogging for 5 years, podcasting for 8 years, all on this premise of what is an easier and more peaceful, flowing way to live life. Because this work hard, play hard, hustle thing cannot be my path, at least, to happiness, because I've already been unhappy as a child in that kind of environment and I'm unhappy in college. So I don't need to get a career and then climb a ladder to continue to prove that doesn't work for me. So whatever the other way is, I'm going to figure it out and help others. And that is like a deeply, profoundly true, and my community knows this, like sincere thing. Like I struggle with it and I wanted to help other people do the same. We're also struggling. And so they know I'm not trying to like sell them. I'm trying to help them because I was unhappy. And so I know the feelings firsthand of what that's like. And so I think that all of that and the deep, deep exploration of what would that other way of life look like became my passion, became my personal mission for myself. And then I would share it. The minute I figured it out, integrated it, lived it, or was in like the leading age stages of the next version of that, I would be giving what I learned and had gotten better at to the community as fast as I could. And so they started working with me and the rest kind of has evolved over the 13 years of working. And the inner voice was essential because the answers I realized were not in me for them. The answers were in them and the answers were in me for me, but we have to learn how to hear that place. And so I really spent 15 years probably really studying how do we hear from that place and how do we use it in life?
How do we hear from our inner voice? How do we hear from our intuition? How do we trust our intuition? And then how do we release to that intuition? But before we get there, something popped out. And if you don't mind, if it's too personal, you just let me know.
Yeah, it's there.
You talked about you were in a marriage, white picket fence, about to have babies, business school, you knew it wasn't right, but describe the moment. Like, what were you feeling? What's this turning point for you? Like it's easy. Brene Brown calls it gold-plated grit. We look back and we're like, this is a really hard thing that we did and we've moved past it. We're very successful, but like, take me back to like the bathroom floor moment. I always feel like everybody has a bathroom floor moment. Like what is happening that makes you feel like I've had enough? Like, this is it.
Oh, well, as far as the divorce goes, very peaceful, very positive, and very opposite of a bathroom floor moment. It was almost like a top floor moment, like a glass ceiling moment. Like your life's good. Everything's going great. You can go do this. I think on a higher level, looking at the life of Jess Lively and the conditioning of myself as a human in America and my personality, probably past lives as well, there's a deep part of me that wanted to have that fulfillment and that family life and all of that stuff. So I think that because of the 5 years of traveling nomadically, my intuition led me on after that. I was going to go down a path I could not have imagined. And so I think I needed to have a marriage. I needed to have the opportunity and the option to have the kids and the white picket fence and everything that I was conditioned and personally wanting within myself. I had to have it and let it go. It had to have been a choice to release it. Not that I let go of the desire for it, because I still 6 years later, still 7 years almost now, I'm excited to have that experience if it flows in my life and closer than now than ever. But the original experience, I had to have the experience to let it go. But I let it go not from a sad moment, but from a high moment. It was from the we're like 3 years in our marriage, about to have kids and do a house addition, and like everything's going forward. But my soul, in a way, gave me like, I looked at it like poker. Like it was giving me the hand and was like, here's a jack, here's a queen, here's a king, here's an ace. Like it was just giving me a royal flush, full house, whatever you want to call the analogy of poker. That was like, you don't have to do that. You can do this if you want free will, but like, you don't have to. And life could be even more aligned for you potentially in the future if you allowed this to release. And so we did, and it was very peaceful. But the pivot point that was like, that was actually very easy and peaceful and flowing for us. The thing that was most amazingly life transforming was when I was going on a trip to Europe. The week beforehand, a woman that was a real estate agent had a client whose project fell through, and she needed it. She had 48 hours to find a house. And she called me because she knew about my divorce, because she was locked out of the house next door while I was breaking up with my husband in the front yard. Not breaking up, like he was moving away to the East Coast, or sorry, to the West Coast. In the moment that we met her, she was locked out of the house next door. She was selling, and he was packing up and leaving in that moment. So she called me 6 months later with this property that fell through for her client and said, I want to show Molly your house. And I said, you can't show her. I'm leaving for Europe next week. I can't possibly do this. I'm not looking to sell this yet. I'm going to Europe for the summer. I'll come back and sell, but not now. She and Molly, long story short, that she buys the house, all the furniture, the car gets driven by her for twice a month for like 6 months. The neighbors next door adopt my dog. Like every single piece of my life fell perfectly, you could say, into place in a whole new way that left me in a suitcase and traveling from my intuition. So that was the piece that completely transformed my journey. But in the process of that, the consciousness that I would experience was unrecognizable, but the intuition told me to do it because I asked why. And it said, because you want a life you've never imagined before. And I literally have a video of me saying, but if I can't imagine it, how do I know I want it? Like it was so unexplainably big, but here I am, Lisbon.
If I
ready to let it all go. How do I know I want it?
If I can't imagine it, how do I know I want it?
Yeah.
To me, that is the start of this massively powerful journey, but it also articulates where so many people are right now. And like, I just want to be real where so many people are. Like, bro, it's me. Okay, Jess, stop calling me out. Stop calling me out right now. So I am selfishly having this conversation, understanding that what I am going to ask also embodies many different questions that take different shapes. I'm going to repeat back what I heard. You had a royal flush, or you had a full house, and you decided to fold your poker hand and walk away from the table to find something else.
Actually, no, that's great clarification. So no, what I felt like the intuition was doing for me was giving me that, saying, you can have what you've got, or I can give you all of this potential. But it was, it was like, things are like, I never even was planning on getting divorced. There's nothing about me that was like thinking that should be a thing. But then it was like, this like single friend would enter my life, and then this person was getting into it, was just like little pieces. And it wasn't like any specific person or anything came into my life, but just like the universe just showed me that the potentials of what I really truly wanted were possible. And so together, the way my partner and I at the time looked at it is like, we could make this work. This is very traditional, very normalized in America as like a type of family relationship we have. Like, it's fine. And to have the life that we would have had, we would have crouched in a box and held hands together. Or we said we could just stand tall and high five each other and truly live the lives that we both want to without compromising in the middle together. And so for us, that was the royal flush, was like, you can high five and stand tall and grow in new ways. You don't have to just do what you were going to do together that wasn't fully the most of what either of you wanted, but would have been fine and what you guys would have expected to have in the first place. So I feel like it was like an up leveling, not a doubt. There was no like mourning the loss of things. There was like, yeah, there's little pieces like, but nothing like hard. Like, I think that the hardest moment I had was taking the baby pictures apart, like pulling his baby pictures apart from my baby pictures and all of the house stuff. That moment was like a little moment I never expected to have. So that was like a bit, but otherwise, like I just saw so clearly the potential we both could have in our lives. And I was excited to live it. I had no idea I'd be living out of a suitcase for 5 years. Dear God, I wouldn't have said, and I think that my intuition had to not tell me, because I would have said no, and I would have stayed married and I would have had the babies if I knew then what I would go through. I could not have imagined, and I would have said no. So it actually had to be purposely vague, because there's no way my mind would have accepted the life I'm now living as positive, because it couldn't imagine that. It was way too divergent.
So myself and many other listeners, if you're listening right now and you're making the decision that it could be really good to crouch in a box and hold hands, and you maybe aren't holding hands with your partner, it could be holding hands with something, and you decide that I want to take the risk and stand tall and high five and step into vagueness and then step into opportunity, you're in the right place. Like it's not happenstance that you're seeing this video or watch or listening to this podcast. It's just not happening. So if you like maybe like, you know what, Jess, I want to stand tall and I want to high five. We have heard trust your gut or listen to your intuition when it comes to making big decisions, but your inner voice work that has taken this like to a whole new level. I'm sure it's taken a lot of work. Can you talk about how business owners can start tapping into their subconscious and make intuition led decisions for their business? So in the context of this podcast, in the context of what I am asking, when I ask to like stand tall and high five, it's like, I want to stand tall and like step into a different form of my business. Like, how do we trust our gut? Like, what are the first like tactical steps that we can do to like, listen, like, it's not just indigestion. It's like really my intuition.
Well, one is like, instead of say how, because if you hear it, the other question would be, why should I trust it? And so why you should trust it is going to be, because let's say I'll give you the tactics to hearing it and a little bit more too, that will be super, super helpful and way more in depth than what I can do on the show. But the other question is, why should I believe it? If I can hear it, and let's say that happens, there's still going to be a heavy amount of fear. Like, I didn't have to get divorced. I didn't have to sell the house to the person. I had sovereign free choice. And so I didn't have to choose that. Yes. Even though intuition told me clearly, you want to have a life you never imagined before, my mind was still lost in the dark going, how do I know I want a life I can't imagine? So there was just a level of trust that was built. And that is done in time with you and your inner voice, your intuition. So that's only done within yourself. And the mind looks for history to be repeatable, and it looks for a track record. And so it's just like a friend that you're forming a relationship with. How do you trust your partner or your friend? Through repeated experiences of trusting them. So you've got to start listening and acting in small and big ways, whatever way you'll do it, and see how things unfold. If you follow it, what happens? If you ignore it, what happens? If you go against what it says, what happens? Just look at the feedback of your life back to you. So you're going to build the trust, and that's going to let you make bigger and bolder decisions, just like you would with you wouldn't marry the person you're on the first date with, because you don't know how they deal with money. You don't know their past. You don't know anything about them. You don't know what kind of STDs they might have. So there's so many things that you need to have time and experience before you're saying, yeah, I'm going to share my life with this person. Or unless your intuition says that it wants it and you're really good at your intuition for all these other experiences, then you may say yes because of the trust you have inside yourself. So that is built over time, just like in real world relationships. So the why you would choose to trust it will become a pattern of choosing to follow and not follow. What happens? What happens? What happens when I choose? What happens when I deny? What happens? Watch your life unfold. That will be the most grounding of the whole thing. Now, how to do it? That question I can give you really quickly, but I also want to say, as I'm now going into a new season of my own life, I have a foundation. And for the last many years, I've been creating this foundation. It's called the Lively Community Foundation. And 10% of my revenue for the last many years has been going into the foundation. And this coming year, we're doing 2 to 5 classes per week. I'm paying the people that have become IVFT facilitators, inner voice facilitators. They're certified and trained by me over the last 2 years. They're going to be paid by my foundation. So I would be paying them, and they'll be working with the public for free. So there's going to be, if you go over to jesslively.com/theliving-room, you will see free classes for the next year go into there. And as long as you're in 2020, it may even go into the first quarter of 2023, but we're putting all the money.
As a point, Jess said 2020. I think she meant 2022.
2022, yes. 2023. Yes. Sorry, I don't even, time is a very loose concept in my life right now.
I love it, Jess. Okay.
It's like in the now, so I'm not really living.
So you're offering free classes by way of coaches that have been certified by you to help people navigate and find and hone their inner voice. Okay.
Yes. So that's happening. So go over there. You can find classes. They're happening weekly. You can join all of them or one of them. The choice is yours. Do it as much as you want and as much as it brings you joy. Look at the topics. The teachers will be teaching on different subjects throughout the year. So there'll be like one-on-one or group classes, depending on how many people show up to these events. It'll vary, of course, but like look at the topic that it sparks your interest and join it. It's free. They're trained. They're going to help you get into it directly. So that's huge.
So what Jess is going to do now, she's going to share some practical tips, but if you like the tips she's sharing, she's trained the coaches. I'm repeating back what I think I'm getting, right?
Yeah.
If you like these tips and the ideology and you're interested, Jess has trained the coaches on the very thing she's advocating for us to do right now. Okay. So we're going to get down and dirty.
And you can also say, by the way, that they have trained, and there's a find a facilitator page on jesslively.com as well. And you can pick a facilitator. They have many different languages. So if you're not English speaking as comfortably, you can find someone that's doing it in other languages as well. Not every language, but a lot of languages. It's a very international community.
I'm dead.
There's like one-on-one sessions are very available. You can book a session with a client or like a one-on-one client session with somebody. So you can get personal help, hand holding. But the biggest thing is that when the mind holds a thought, it holds your breath at the same time. So if you want to stop thinking and start hearing your inner voice, you have to stop holding your breath. What the holding of your breath is the inhale and a hold. So for you to hear, you have to exhale.
Okay.
So when you ask a question,
no, Jess, no. I just feel like I am shooketh. I'm shooketh. When you hold a thought,
you hold the breath at the same time. So if your mind is holding a thought, if it's thinking a thought, it holds your breath at the same time. So if I want you to stop thinking, all I have to do is get you to exhale for 3 minutes and you can't think anymore. And you'll actually get to the point as your breathing regulates to the exhale. You'll still inhale, but the exhales are the essentials because they're where you're releasing the thoughts and you can blow the thoughts away. So as you blow the thoughts, you go deeper and deeper, calmer and calmer, the whole nervous system changes and you can start hearing. And you just listen in your belly or your chest, wherever you're going to feel peaceful, wherever you've heard a knowingness or felt a knowingness before, belly or chest is most likely where they'll be. And you're just going to listen like you would be listening to me. You don't know what words I'm going to say next. You put that same hearing mode, but you direct it inside your chest or your stomach. And as you're doing that, you're exhaling. So the thoughts that your mind would otherwise think can't stick. So you can even notice those come up and you blow them away. And you only need for the inner voice 1 word answers. So ask a question and then blow, blow, blow and listen. This is all going to be done in the classes. So go take a class. It's way better to do an hour-long class with somebody live and helping you. But this is the quick way, quick and dirty. Exhaling and listening. 1 word answers are all you need because you can follow up on that word that you heard and ask more questions. So you can I will have an entire inner voice session for 2 hours with somebody that's if they're really hearing their inner voice, I can get 1 word out of them each time. And then I'll just ask another question to that word, another question. The inner voice is wisdom. It's the distilled wisdom of probably all lifetimes. And so that wisdom is rich. If you notice that Splinter or Yoda or all of these Mr. Miyagi, all these enlightened or wise beings that you see even depicted in media, they don't say a lot of words. They're not wordy. They're not talking a mile a minute. They're able to distill because they're theoretically speaking from a place of wisdom. So you just need 1 word answers to say an entire paragraph the mind would take to write. So you can get so much information 1 word at a time. Just continue to ask questions. What I notice most people do that they're doing kind of not wrong, but what they're doing badly is they ask a question, they hear an answer, and they don't follow up with like 10 more questions. And they just say, oh, I heard this, I didn't know what it meant. And so then I stopped asking. And it's like, well, if you're confused, go for more clarity. Don't stop talking. It's not stopping to supply to you. So continue to ask questions, or ask different questions if you feel blocked, because sometimes there's fear and emotion in the mind blocking answers that the mind has fear around. So it'll be very easy and clear for certain subjects that you don't struggle with. The areas you struggle the most with, your ego's favorite chew toy, as my community knows I call it, that area is going to be riddled with emotional beanbags, as I've coined them. It's the pain body, as Eckhart Tolle talks about it, but it's just emotions that are from past experience triggerable to that subject. So the mind tries to protect you and be very mental in its protection mode to that area. And that's where you most need this wisdom, but your mind's most trying to protect you and is fear of hearing the answer. So that is also in the foundation. We have like beanbag release group sessions now. So there's like also how to release those emotions is going to be taught freely throughout the year as well.
What's been an emotional chew toy for you?
Oh gosh, over my career, like everything. So for the first 9 years, I would say I was 9 years of eating issues. So my mind chewed on the subject of what my body looked like and how much calories I ate. I was borderline anorexic. I was obsessive as much as anorexic, but borderline, like very unhealthy. Doctor never had to make an intervention, but call my mom, was like, look, she's got to gain some weight or there's a problem. And so that was 4.5 years of my life. And then 4.5, 5 years of my life was binging. So 9 years obsessive about the subject of body from teenage into mid 20s. Then it switched over to work and like metrics. I remember looking at my blog page views like obsessively when I was young and worrying about money. I've never had a full-time job, so I've always had my paycheck be this very ebb and flow type of thing. So money and metrics and meaning out of my like being externally important meant a lot to my mind to feel deserving and worthy. Then it switched when I got divorced to relationship. So then for the last 6 years, that was the subject that it chewed on the most. So I feel like most people focus on body or health, a career or abundance, and then relationships in some form. So like those are the typical things that the minds, and then global issues is like a global fourth. So they could be worried about wars in the Ukraine, or they could be worried about global warming or COVID or something like bigger. But usually the personal life stuff are those three. And I've had almost a decade of many of them, or at least half a decade of some of those topics. So I've struggled with all of them in the mind over the years.
Wow. And so you went through like releasing of the beanbags.
Yeah.
And you've made progress.
Oh, for sure. Now my body is more easily aligned and naturally living whatever I want to eat, whatever I don't want to eat. I feel like even though it was so even though I was so, we could say, bad at it, I was so mental about these subjects, I can say I was failing because I was being mental about those subjects. For every year that I was mental about those subjects, I was struggling in that area at any outcome I would have wanted. And so I will say that I was dedicated and persistent enough to keep going deeper than the mind, to find this place inside myself for guidance and wisdom, and then giving over the years, giving over those subjects to the inner voice. And now I have a body that's self-sustaining and healthy inside of itself and looks beautiful at the same time. And I have a partner now, and I have the abundance and the career factors like to the nines. So now I can say, and it doesn't mean that there won't be something my mind could invent in the future, who knows, but it's just to say that like those pieces of life that I have now are unrecognizable as possible to some people, but with the ease that I have, I think that's the piece that I think that's really unique, that I think that is rare, is that people are still getting similar outcomes, but with a lot more effort to the effort hustle way of things. It doesn't have to be effortful to be fruitful. So I think what's amazing is the fruits without the massive effort once the mind has let go of the subject.
It can be fruitful and not as effortful.
Yes. Effortless. kind of meant to be that way. The inner voice will tell you it's not meant to be hard. This is not meant to be a struggle. This is not meant to be it can feel very hard. This dualistic experience is full of duality, but it is not required to have as much suffering and as much strife and as much pain been in the human experience. It is prevalent, and I'm not denying its existence over time, but the actual, like, I've worked with channels over the different courses of the years I've done this stuff. And I remember bringing that up to them, like, why is this so hard? And they say, we love you so much. We've already explained this. It wasn't designed to be this reality. It was not designed to become what it has become. And it doesn't have to stay what it has been. It can always be chosen new, and it can be released, but there are things you need to release, like emotional beanbags for the most part. That's the real work for each individual, because the collective is a reflection of the individual. So when the individual is clean, and you can only clean your own cell, the body's only healthy from an individual cell. So we're all responsible, self-contained, to clean our cells. And then that lightens the load for the whole. So it's an interesting journey. It's been a very deep and winding path, of course.
Okay. So there's somebody here and they're listening and they're like, I've tried listening to my gut and then I ended up with nothing or something that I didn't want. Like my gut's wrong, Jess. My gut is leading me wrong. How do we respond to that?
Well, the question is whether you heard truly from what I call your intuition or your inner voice. That's the big thing. So your mind I call it spiritual wizarding in my training. I talk with my facilitators a lot about the clients they could get that have especially those that have done a lot of reading and workshops on books like Eckhart Tolle or The Power of Now or anything. Like they've done a lot of reading. So their mind might have the concepts conceptually, but that doesn't mean they're accessing their own wisdom. So they can kind of say the answers that are right, that their inner voice could tell them potentially, but they're saying it from a different frequency. They're saying it from repetition in the mind, parroting the other wisdom teachers of the past. So there's sometimes also it could be saying what it's afraid of, or it's speaking from a place of fear. So there's kind of like, it could either model and mimic wisdom, or it could speak its own fear. And if you're calling that your inner voice, neither are true. Neither of those, whether it's mimicking something else, it could still be saying the same essence as another wise teacher, but it can say it in a way that's new for you. So one thing I would say, if you're not sure if you're hearing from your intuition, we get this all the time. If you're not sure you heard the intuition, hold another beat for another word. So if you hear one word and you're like, my mind could have made that up, stay listening a beat longer, listen for another word, hear the second word. When you've heard the second word, analyze, is this second word the same meaning as the first word or not? If you're still not sure, wait for a third word. By the time it gets to the third word, if you're listening, you're exhaling, you're receiving, you're not sure, get the second word. You're still questioning it, get the third word. By the time your intuition has to go through your subconscious to find a word that will then translate into you, it will be so obscure that your mind would never neuropathically go there. So you'll go, I don't know, it was super weird. And also you could ask the question, is the answer I heard something my mind agrees with? If you heard an answer that contrasts with what your mind is afraid of or doesn't want to do, then it's a pretty good indication that you didn't hear from the mind, because the mind wouldn't answer in a way it doesn't agree with, unless it's coming from a place of pain. So it's, those are some tricks. And like I said, whole year free classes, just use the foundation in the living room to learn and get better at it and practice. But for other people, I don't want to say that everybody has this tool within them, but not everyone's interested or ready to use it. So if you're interested and ready, give yourself space and time and maybe join some of the classes. But if you see someone in your life that's not interested or ready, like, let them not be interested, let them not be ready. They don't need to use this tool right now, but it is equally within everyone, but not everyone's as good at using it. So that's okay. And if you're interested, it's really about going into yourself and just focusing on your own skills.
So by way of example, has there been a time where a word had come up for you and you're like, I'm not sure? So you walked through that same process where you held the beat.
Yeah.
Can you give us examples? And I'm like super digging in, like getting close to your central nervous system. I'm like, Jess, like,
well, one I loved was, I can't remember exactly it's probably in the more recent years. So it's probably the subject of relationship in Hawaii 2020. I don't remember the subject that my mind was specifically fixated on, but I remember I used to get this phrase a lot: no farthing, no farthing, no farthing. And I was like, it's not no farting, it's not no farting, it's no farthing, farthing. So I Googled it once after hearing it a lot, and I realized it's an old Roman coin or something like that. So it was kind of the essence. What I was getting was, don't pay attention, like nothing, like let it go, allow, like it was like don't give it a dime, like don't pay any cent of attention, don't give it, it has no value. And I found that so interesting because I didn't know what a farthing was. I just knew I was hearing the word, but had no conscious understanding of what it was. So that was a really interesting one because it was a way my mind could not have used its own tools because it didn't even know what it was. The concept was foreign to my mind, but not to my inner voice.
So Hawaii 2020, you are not in a relationship, correct? Nope. And you hear no farthing, no farthing. Nope. You do the work to discover what it means, and you know it just came out from somewhere. So then what was your act? What was your behavior? Like you felt confirmed?
My mind probably still like did it. I have to say that like before meeting my partner, because that was the subject that was like for 6 years a big thing. What was interesting is right before, a few weeks before meeting my partner, I asked my inner voice, am I ready yet to meet? I had just gone through a breakup with someone for a few months, and I was like, am I ready yet? And it said, almost, but not quite yet. And I said, why? And it said, because you haven't fully learned to sit down yet. And what I realized is that in all of the areas, the body, the money, the helping other people, and the partner, all essentially what I had to learn to do was to sit down and allow. So I'm going to quote Rumi right now because it's literally what it said. You haven't fully learned to sit down yet. The Rumi quote version of that is very beautiful. It said, when I run after what I think I want, my life is a furnace of distress and anxiety. When I sit in my place of peace, what I want comes to me without any strife. From this, I realized what I want also wants me. And when it cannot tempt me anymore to go to it, it has to come to me. There's a great wisdom in this for anyone that can grasp it. So that is my inner voice said it in one sentence, because you haven't fully learned to sit down yet. And I remember I asked about dating, because this was like, I was newly single at this period. And I said, am I going to have to date again? And it said, it will not be an Easter egg hunt. It will be an Easter egg parade. And if you think about a parade, you have to sit down. You can't see all the floats, and you can't go chasing the parade, because if you chase it, you're just going to see the same float that you're running next to. You have to sit in your place of patience, fully sit down and allow the parade of experiences rather than run after them. So body, money, all the things in my mind, because here's what I want to say. Nobody has a problem with money or body or anything. They just have their mind attached to that subject. And so if they didn't have it attached to that subject, it would flow more freely and effortlessly than if they're attached to it. So they can see their friend or family member not worried about that subject at all, and it's flowing great for them because their minds, they're not like messed up in that area and the other person's perfect. It's just the minds are in different areas of discomfort on that subject. And when the mind's uncomfortable, it tries to solve. And when it's solving from pain and emotional insecurity, that's where it tries to fixate and usually messes it up and creates a whole lot of effort to get the same result, but not any inner peace in the process, or very bad results that just are completely out of whack from what you actually want altogether. So it's either really hard to get and maintain, like a really rich person that's super frugal and like won't ever enjoy it. That's not fun to live that life. That's not even enjoying your abundance. You're not even abundant. You can have abundance and act meagerly because you're not inwardly feeling that state of being. So, or you could like have no money and have loads of money issues. So either result is either lots of effort and no joy, or lots of effort and no money and no joy. But when you allow without the mind getting in the way, nature can work through you so much more efficiently and magically for you in ways you don't have to try so hard. So you have to wait for the parade. And so I've been like a living cocktail, or I've been a living 13 years, 5 years of blogging through this, 8 years of podcasting on all of the subjects, through all the subjects. And I've just been, it is possible. If I, in this mind that has been stuck on everything, can do it, everyone can do it. But it takes a lot of introspection rather than looking for experts on the outside. So we talk about facilitation in our programs because it's about making the process easier for you to go into you, not for you to look outside of you. So that's really the next level humans are ready for. It's always been available, but it's just been, our consciousness has not been trained or taught in any systemic way. The answers are inside, and our sovereignty is within, and it's not outside in the government or in the people around us or what our parents want for us. That our own answers are inside of ourselves, and our peace is there also, never in the world, always within, and then extends through us to the world.
Jess Lively, you are an Easter egg parade. Like, just you are everything that I needed to hear. And I have no doubt that thousands and thousands and thousands of people need to hear this. And then the offer then becomes, are you ready to be introspective? And then Jess would likely say, if your intuition is telling you that it's time to get introspective, you could visit the Lively Foundation. Can you give us that site one more time?
Yeah, go to just jesslively.com. That'll just be like an easy, memorable URL. You'll see the living room. Look for the living room. That's the free programming that we'll be doing. Starting March 6th. I don't know when this will air, but starting March 6th is when the free classes begin.
So when I ask, hey, Jess, how do people follow up with your journey? How you're like, what we're going to go to jesslively.com, but like, do we spill the tea right now? Like, do we let people know like the next chapter that is Jess Lively?
Yeah, well, this actually was the first time I've said it, because I have not podcasted in 4 months. Hold
on, Jess. Is your intuition telling you to say it, or do we just
keep
it out?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I will do an episode soon. I don't know when yours versus mine, to the timing of it going to people's earbuds. But I can say I'm being called to stillness. So it's been a beautiful journey. I've been so thrilled and honored to be able to be of service to the world. But now I'm really excited to kind of let Jess Lively and all the skills and all the experiences kind of dissolve, like let her decay, like let that, like obviously I'm going to still exist as a person, but I'm excited to let the coach and the podcaster and this person that's been on the stage kind of go away and just see what comes out of stillness. So I don't know, the Instagram that I have will become the community's Instagram. So we'll be sharing the living room programming and stuff. I'm going to give that to the foundation. We have an app so that the people, because the community loves each other and loves meeting each other so much, we have an app for them. So that's on the website you can find too. And then the living room will be having these classes. So now it's like Jess is stepping away so the community can come forward and be together and go within, because it's never been about me. I've just one of the first people to share in a very public way that this is possible within them. But now I'm continuing, as always, to follow what's in me. And what's in me is saying, be still, be here, allow it all. So that's what I'm going to do.
Be here, be still, allow it all. Jess Lively, your legacy will go far beyond this. And I look forward to whatever the next chapter and iteration of your life is. Please know you will always have a forever fan, a forever friend, a forever proponent of all things that you are. And if you decide to come back in a public way, I will be excited for you. And if not, I will be equally as excited. Thank you. Thank you for sharing this information in this moment in your way. You are so impactful. Thank you for being a blessing to us and allowing us the courage to look within, and then thereafter get additional resources should we decide to pursue that. I appreciate you 1,000 times over.
Thank you so much for having me. And may something wonderful happen to you today. That's how I always wrap my shows.
That's a perfect place to do it.